Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate that you have the time to be here with us and sharing your time. Tonight we have Cristina Coronado Flores. She'll be sharing about migration tonight. About Cristina, she works for the Migrants Ministry in the border of Mexico, United States, in Ciudad Juarez. She also works as a coordinator of a project Cathedral, supporting migrants. So now I'll give the mic to Christina for her to share with us to talk how about the things with us and to share with us about the reality of migration right now.
Thank you for being here this afternoon and for allowing us to have this space to share about the work that we do in Juarez. We have a diocese here in Juarez. I work with the San Columbano Ministry. We've been working over the last 4 years in this project, but especially in the most recent times, we've had to deal more with wave of migrations in need of assistance. I want to jump into it and talk about what's going on, and that is that there are thousands of immigrants coming to the borders in need of assistance, in need of support. A lot of you know the history from 2019 to now and the policies that were in place that have forced the system to where it is now. A lot of this started with the president of Donald Trump, in which people would come to the border, but they would be pushed back into Mexico to await their status. This was under a policy in place called MPP, which has furthered this condition. Working in Juarez, many people came looking for shelter and looking for some sort of support, but this wasn't always the case. Many people who there were beginning to pick up of persecution, and while they awaited their conditions, many of them for up to 2 years for this program to end, the condition has been exasperated. It got exasperated to the point where thousands of these people, seeing no resolution to the case, decided to immigrate back home. A lot of people that come with the expectation of better conditions, but it's also important to remember that this is also very much a business. Many people are brought here with lies to the border in expectation there being a program to support them, when that's not the case. And many of these people who come do spend thousands of dollars in making it to the border. When COVID-19 hit, the government used Title 42 as an excuse to be able to deport people. Thousands of people from Central America and South America were left without protection. And one of the challenges with this Title 42 is that it allows them to work in a way that it puts people at risk without much responsibility, and it leaves them at risk of people who are predatory and that are going to look for ways to sell them the opportunity yet again to go back into the United States. COVID-19 increased also the sector that we were attending. We grew up to start attending thousands of people that were left alone. There was also lots of controls that came from this. That population that we were serving really grew, but also the services that we were able to provide because many people wanted to support this. But even then, the people that were staying here had a lot of questions that necessarily couldn't be answered. When could they go in? How could they go in? Was there possibilities for asylum? And the sad reality was that the answer was no. There were no programs in place because of Title 42 that could be accessed. MPP was still very much a thing. And the courts pretty much forced Biden's hand to re-implement this. While there was an initiative to end this, the court decided to reinstate it. And while it wasn't thousands of people that are being affected to this of the population that we serve, there are hundreds in wait of this process and in waiting for asylum. But there's still a lot of obscurity about it on how they can actually access. For many families that are looking to emigrate, many see having children as a plus. They saw it as an advantage, being able to say, like, because I'm coming with a child, the US is going to be able to take me in. But there were more legalities that really didn't happen. Even today, right now, 80,000 kids are still in these containment centers separating from families. These are courtesy of those policies that were in place that separated families kids from their families as a way to discourage immigration into United States. There were efforts now after the administration change to unify these families, but it's turned out to be a complete failure. Many of those efforts, when the family separation was taking place, did not take proper record keeping of who those families were. So people were just lost. There's a lot of pain that is left because of it, because many of the people who came pretty much got in debt to be able to come here, to be able to afford those conditions, and it still lets them exposed and at risk. There are services that are in place right now, but to be able to support those people and kind of explain the situation, the risks coming here, what they expose themselves, not only in terms of kidnapping people who say they're going to cross the border, but in reality just take families' money and then leave them stranded in different cities. But once they come to us, many of the times, a lot of this information is it's not pretty useful because they're already here. We not only work with these families as well, we're also working with a lot of Haitian population, and we're ending up juggling a lot of balls because of everything that's going on. There's different profiles to people who work with. A lot of them people are people who have emigrated out of the needs. But speaking from my personal experience, working for the people with populations from Guatemala who have also been forced to leave their home, many of them leave in order to look for better financial conditions. But there's also the case of many families in Guatemala who leave because the expectation is not only financial, but because they have actually face persecution inside the country, mostly from corporations that are pushing them out of their lands.
De ser acogida bajo esta figura que
I want to
ahorita
mention the
está
5
suspendida.
criteria that are in play when people come here that right now are suspended.
Ajá.
First is
Sí.
political persecution, when people are pursued because of their political beliefs.
Sí.
Religious
Sí.
persecution, when someone believes in something that is not the official religion of the country. Discrimination because of your ethnicity, especially in indigenous populations, because of sexual orientation, and persecution because of the defense of the environment. These 5 characteristics that the United States have for considering asylum for someone. These are the 5 conditions where people are being persecuted, are accepted into the United States. But things like violence, persecution because of gangs is not part of the criteria for asylum seekers. And many of the people that we end up attending at the border are people who come exactly for that reason. I want to talk a little bit about the conditions about the people who come and that we serve. Many of them don't end up in shelters because there's not enough, and the shelters that do exist are seen as long-term solutions, but these long-term solutions come at a very high expense. Many of these spaces store 40 to 50 people per space. People get desperate because of these conditions, because of the conditions. It's very easy for people to fall in frustration. Another group that we attend is people who exactly who we mentioned, those who are not in shelters, who find out ways to find a place to rent while they wait for their case to be solved or seen. These are people that come 15, 10, 20 people together to be able to rent a space together and while they wait for a resolution. Right now, the expectation is that we have over 10,000 people who have emigrated and who still stay in these conditions, expecting their results being people who are in shelters or people who are renting. Of those people, it's important to mention that they're still considered that 1,000 of them are still considered to be under conditions of kidnapping, because the people who are basically control them are still holding on to them until they were able to figure out how to get them across the border. Many people are still coming in expectation that Title 42 is coming to an end, but the reality is that when they come here, they figure out that that is not the case. Those who have more financial conditions try to move from this border to another one that they hope has better conditions, but the highways are dangerous. They still expose themselves to dangers during these projects. Some people are going to try to go to Tijuana to move, and those who don't, they're still forced to stay here in what are pretty much deplorable conditions. What happens when for families that actually are able to move into the United States? For them, many of this is a 1-year process. And even when they're able to go through one of these processes to actually get into the United States, reality hits hard. Many of the families that go take on loans in their current families, or families take on loans to be able to finance this movement. So when they get to the United States, finding employment is difficult. So they end up working every day, 12 to 14-hour shifts to be able to pay off that debt. And because you're paying off that debt, that means there's not really time for anything else other than work. There's no time for family, and of the money that's left, there isn't anything for lawyers. So that also complicates things. Even those who do have lawyers, it is very much a long process, and it is a very smaller segment of the population. There is the case of one of these families that they had to work very much through this process because they had some of the resources to be able to afford this, but even then, it is not an easy case, even if they have the resources. Some families are lucky enough to be able to, as mentioned before, go through the process, and even then those face extreme challenges once they're in. But for most of the families, this is not the case. Many families that enter without the protection of one of these programs have to wait inside the system, or in this case, one of the conditions that the United States offered was an accession program for high-risk situations, people who had proven have suffered abuse, or pregnant women that were at risk, people whose ailment would not allow them to stay alive if they stayed waiting in Mexico. Some of these people weren't allowed conditions to come in. But even after those conditions, once things are resolved, they're always going to face the legal system in the United States, facing the possibility of being deported. And there have been cases of people who were actually approved. They got all their people with everything legalized, and they were still deported afterwards. The other profile that we have of the families that actually do make it, not those who have the conditions, not those who wait at the border and wait for exemptions, but those who the Kyotos actually are able to get them through the borders. Even those who make it, they are resigned to live in the dark, because they're always going to be in fear. What happens if I get caught? What happens if I get found out? The only thing that expect them are jail, being deported back to the countries where they came from, or being sent straight to the border. Right now, the U.S. does not have those programs in place. And what we do is we try to serve these people. Cathedral is the first area that they come to, and through there, we try to find shelter. We try to have our focus group, especially women who come with children. And once we're able to reach those populations, we wait. The only thing that we can really do is wait out with them and see what changes. If there are exceptions, if they're approved, these are answers that are not in our hands. They are very much up to the U.S. They come here to close borders. And at the expectation there is. Right now, we're waiting on May 23rd to see what's going to happen to Title 42. And you hear a lot of things. People make a lot of comments. But the heartbreaking part about it is that many of these comments come with real life consequences. People who believe Title 42 is about to end and sell all their goods, sell all their properties to be able to make it by the time it opens, when in reality, this is hearsay. Our official policy is we're going to wait to hear what happens until there's not something official from the United States, from the government. We don't really get to share that part. All of this being said, I know this is a little bit, it's a fragment of what we do, and now we want to open this space up for questions.
So thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much, Liz, for sharing tonight with us. And right now we have the chance to share some questions that may have happened or you're thinking right now, then Cristina can help us.
Looks like a few people have raised their hands. Algunas personas levantaron la mano. Lana Harvey.
Hi, my question is, do you think it would be more helpful given that the CDC has said themselves that to restrict people from coming into the country based on COVID standards is no longer needed because it's not going to exacerbate the number of COVID cases in the US?
So we think that the COVID is going to be used as an excuse still. The US is never going to be open or clear, upfront about their policies. We have heard rumors, as always, we heard before really something is open and it's presented to the people. So we think that the Title 42 is going to be extended because this was negotiated with the Republicans. That we think if the expectation is to accelerate the process, if they accelerate the process and there are going to be exceptions, we are ready to respond to that, but we don't have a clarity on that. There's always the policies are in the air, and we really have always seen with the years that the policies are always kind of a cloud to us. We never are clear on it. So we think that this is going to be extended. Really, we're not if they decline right now the Title 42, we think that we're going to see something like the waves and the immigration crisis that we have never seen before.
Thank you.
Gracias. I think Peter has a question.
Yeah,
Peter,
hi,
tiene
gracias.
una pregunta.
Sí, gracias. Gracias, Cristina. My question is in English, and I can you hear me okay, Ruth? Okay, thank you. My question is, for many of us in the United States, we're ordinary people and we're far away from Juarez. And what, in your opinion, do you think we can do to help?
So what we try to do, it's to do a network of support for the immigrants. Depends, I don't know which city you're in, but we are trying to do that once people cross the border. If they cross legally or not with a program, they try to connect them with the network of immigrant or Jesuit immigration network. They are connected, with other organizations that can help give different support to the people, because as I said, even though they cross with a program, their needs are, are really wide, when they get there. So they might need different support systems. So it's really helpful for us that people can, put themselves into this network and say, like, I am in this city, if there is someone who comes and need such and such a help, can count, but can look me up and I can help. So Brandon asked a question, as basically was when there is time when the US is open for asylum, and how long, or how every 2 years happens, or how do they decide that? And the answer is really, there is not an asylum program right now. The borders are closed, so there is no chances to get in any of those programs. Really, we don't know when they're going to, open for asylum, when they're going to open the borders for asylum. We don't know when they're going to remove the Title 42. that allows people to come in. Really, there is not security or there is not a protocol. The US is constantly changing. And they never are like, this step will follow this step. That never happens, you know, they always change. So we're having uncertainty about the policies and the trades they're going to do. What we have seen right now is there is the expulsion because of the Title 42 or the MPP, and there is also another title that is Title 8, and that is immediate deportation to your country of origin. So this is really, you know, what we've seen right now. There's really not, you know, there's not a formula or what we can figure out, you know, when the asylum is going to be open.
So it looks like we have another question in the chat asked from Margarita, asking what is going to happen with people who won the lottery. They have a visa lottery here, and some people won years ago, and they have a sponsor, and have never had legal problems, but I imagine it's on hold.
So, Cristina really doesn't have the answer for the visa lottery, that, you know, what had happened to the people that applied for it years ago. So she doesn't know, you know, she's not related to that, but she has someone, her friend Tanya, that is a lawyer, and it's in Washington. So she's gonna ask her, and then she's gonna send Carrie the answer. So she will let them know what is the answer for that. So she says also, Tanya, you know, it's a very resourceful person. She also worked with them for a long time. So she's a lawyer, she's in Washington, and she would be a great person to have another talk with, you know, if you have other questions that Cristina couldn't answer.
Are there other questions? ¿Alguien más tiene una pregunta? Sí, there's a number of chats. Yes, it'd be great if Tanya could also give a talk. And that this has been excellent. So thanks to Cristina and everyone who helped make this happen. But yes, any other questions? It's a good time to ask. Go ahead and ask. And if not, then we can close up.
Gracias, Vicky, igualmente. Thank you.
Oh, I think we do have another question from Richard
Karin.
Hall. Ah, sí. ¿Y quién? ¿Quién está hablando?
Karin,
Sí.
Cari, Eluvia.
Hallelujah.
The question was, you know, what was basically the difference with the MPP and the Title 42, and the brief explanation of that is that the MPP, you know, is the protocol that was implemented to protect the immigrants, that was under the Trump administration, and that was that people needed to be sent to Mexico and wait there to get a legal status. But you know, that Trump implemented that, and then there was something that they did an exception for it. They were not deporting everybody, but they were only deporting men who had really they had good health conditions, and that was for a little bit under the Trump administration, and then it was a massive administration. It didn't matter if you were healthy or not healthy, it was women, children, everybody needed to be out. And then Trump stepped out, and then Biden was forced to take over that program again. And now they are in the same situation of expelling men who are single and have good health conditions. And then the Title 42, you know, basically saying that the immigrants are at risk to expand the COVID, so that it's a health law that is implemented when there is a war or there is a pandemic. And because of the pandemic, people were expelled and have no guarantees to enter because they were a health risk to the US. But now what they're seeing, it's that, you know, the borders are closed. There is not really, you know, any sort of programs that is allowing people in. What they're seeing, it's an increasing of the Title 8 that she explained, that is if you get caught and you don't have any program that you are under, you are expelled in 2 or 3 days back to your country of origin. And also the borders they were closed, you know, until that time, doing any business, or for people who have who were in the borders, you know, and have legal documentation to cross, that was closed as well. Right now, they're opening little by little.
And I think we have a question from Richard Hall. Tenemos otra pregunta por parte
Yes.
de Richard.
Hello. I'm wondering if there are people who have made it through the border, are in the United States, but basically are stuck there, that they don't have any place to go.
So Christina is, she says she really doesn't know what happened if this situation arrived. You know, that she knows a little bit case by case, but she doesn't want to risk to giving us an answer. And she's not totally 100% sure of what, you know, happens to the people. You know, it's probably case by case. So she's not gonna give us an answer to that.
Miriam has a question.
So Christina, Miriam's question was like, you know, we always heard about someone, you know, we heard in our communities that someone have gathered money, you know, it's ready to go, and they made it, you know, they are over there and they made it, and they are there. So they paid thousands of dollars to cross the border, and we hear that. But also sometimes we hear that, you know, in the midst of this or in the middle of this, they get stopped and they're asked for more money, you know, they ask for ransom for people. And the answer from Christina was yes. There is, you know, this is a very complicated subject. You know, the human trafficking is a huge business. It's still today, you know, thousands of dollars are paid and are asked the immigrants to pay for their relatives. We have seen, you know, some of the young people who are crying and asking their families to please pay the ransom for them so they can cross. You know, there is a few people who, yes, they made it to the US, but this should not, you know, really be something that we should look for, because it can happen, you know, but it's not something that is easy to do. They, we say that they go and they remain in the darkness, you know, and that's another subject for another time, because there is, you know, the darkness of the life of the people who makes it to the United States and how the conditions that they have to suffer through when they are there. So yes, it's true, you know, this is a true business, the human trafficking and the thousands of dollars that get asked from the relatives or from the immigrants to cross.
Lana Harvey, did you have another question? Otra pregunta por parte de Lana?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I just wanted you to know if you had any sort of solutions for the people that were stuck in the MPP program and through unfortunate events actually missed their asylum hearing, and now there's no recourse for them for consideration for asylum.
There is no solution right now. You know, the program have everything is canceled, so there is no solution for that at the moment. So it's basically, you know, all in the hands of the US. You know, we can't do anything. We can do some, you know, humanitarian help. We can help them in this side, but we're only a bridge. You know, it's not really up to us to give them any solutions. You know, there is not really anything we can do from this side.
Thank you.
Kerry.
Sí,
Hola.
Consuelo.
So the question was, you know, what happened to the minors, you know, that are crossing the US and the parents are in the US? And the answer is like, well, this is also a very complex question, because sometimes, you know, it happens, you know, the kids can be, can have a program, you know, that reunites families and they have a chance and they are reunited with their parents. But there is also, the risk of the kids that are sent by themselves to get lost in the way, to disappear, to die, or really there is not a true answer to this. There is the criteria of the US changes every day. Last week can be one and today can be another one. And also, it can happen that the kids cross and they get sent to a detention center. And that, it means sometimes, that they're there until they're 18 years old and then they are deported to their country of origin. Or it can be that they are there for months, until they can be reunited with their parents. But there's really not a yes or no answer to this.
Gracias. Thank you. Ahora tenemos una pregunta de Brandon. Brandon has a question.
So Brandon's question was, we heard that the borders, by land, they're closed. So he was wondering if there are more chances of getting a working visa or a tourist visa. And Christina said, no, it's it's the same as, there are only a few visas, that are being granted to people. It's very, very slow because of the COVID, it takes a long time. And Brandon said, yeah, that's what I heard, that here in Guatemala is the same. And Christina said, yeah, in Mexico is the same. There is not really any programs or any chances that visas are being granted. And then Brandon say that, he have seen in some of the social media, their visas are granted, but to go to Canada.
Well, thank you so much to everyone who's here. And thank you, Christina, for being here and sharing with us over almost an hour and a half about their experience and what she knows. So I think we have to be closing right now because of time. It's getting a little bit late. So in the chat, there's some link, there's some email addresses where you can contact Christina directly if you have more questions. And yeah, we're going to try to keep going with this kind of talks, invite more people, Elsa, Christina, and Tanya, if she's available to join us. So thank you so much again. I know this is a very important topic for all of us. This affects us, a lot of families here in the South, in Central America and Mexico. And so yeah, we want to know how things are going because more than one of us has some relative in the US or who tried to cross at some point. So again, thank you for joining us. We're gonna tell you when's their next call. So you are all invited for that one. And well, have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias a ti,
permitirme.
Cristina.
Gracias. Nos vemos. Ok, seguimos en contacto. Con mucho gusto, seguimos en contacto para otras, tal vez más adelante, y también puedo buscar Tania, otras personas. Ok.
Yeah, we're going to keep in contact. I'll check with Tanya if she's available, or maybe other people who's going to join us too.
Posiblemente tenemos una de las personas que más sería para usted sería Rubén García, por él, no sé, no estoy segura, pero Rubén podía tener la perspectiva de Estados Unidos muy, muy amplia, muy, muy amplia. Entonces, posiblemente. Gracias. Buenas noches a todos. Que estén muy bien.
Buenas noches.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Adiós.